It's everywhere you look. It's at everyone's front door. The very system we continue to rely upon as self is on total verge of totalitarian meltdown. I'm making this video to help people to think, not to tell you what I know is 100% right, or to stroke my own ego to be right to you. I've always believed those who say they know everything really know nothing whatsoever. All I can convey to you is what I believe to be true as a result of a lifetime of earnest research. As human beings, we are given the gift of our intellect. If we don't use it, others will use theirs over us, and then we become nothing more than the sheep going to the slaughter. When we hand our choices over and fears over to someone else, anyone, instead of seeking out answers for ourselves, we are taking a cowardly way out, and we fail to grow. In many ways, this is where we find ourselves on Earth in 2022, essentially being led by a vast national security surveillance state, being pulled from one catastrophic global event to the next, led by a shadow government. This terrible circumstance can be traced back to our parents' and our grandparents' failure to take ownership of the lies we accept, even while knowing the truth we all know at heart. And so the situation never improves. In fact, in recent years, so many constitutional rights have been assaulted. The assault is hardly covert anymore. In my series of videos, in which new episodes will come every few weeks until I feel all the info is fully expressed, I intend to get you to put your mental thought process into the shoes and circumstances of great figures in history, to try to get you to seek out answers to some of the most perplexing questions and conflicts posed by the most consequential event our society has ever gone through. The subject I'm going to spend a great deal of time on over a grouping of videos is the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. I've spent a great many years, since I was a teenager in fact, on the significance of this assassination event, as well as to study the policies of the man himself. I'm here to tell you, even at this date, 6 years from the original event, this subject, even still, continues to haunt our world. And up until the unleashing of the pandemic and the subsequent events of the 2020 United States presidential election, which was a world event beyond comprehension and consequence, I make a case that the assassination of JFK, November 22nd, 1963, is the most consequential and most terrible event of the past 60 years. A short bit about who I am. I am 53 years old. I helped found and for over a decade was the musician in a famous band at the top of that profession. This video will not cover that subject at all, but it's good for you to know that about me when considering my point of view and background on the subject. In 2022, we find our country in a great state of overwhelming unfolding events. In my view, we should not be shocked at all. In many ways, we are totally responsible for our plight, due to the fact we and our parents and grandparents have allowed terrible historical events and people to go unchecked and unpunished. I believe, like many people, that the government we currently have is nothing but systemic cronyism, and that we ceased to be a true representative republic when they killed our president and we allowed them to get away with it. This view is not new. We have a system that has become a monolithic uniparty, serving the interests of a very small handful of global elites, along with multinational corporations and technology companies. This was not how our system was designed to function, but it's what it's morphed into. We are misled, propagandized to be utterly confused by events taking place all around us. This is done to get us to lose sight of our own ability to both think and to act to correct the actions of those who wield power improperly. Division has always been the hammer used by the few to rule the many, used all throughout history. We are purposefully driven into this or that, left or right camps and groups of people. If you are below the age of 30 and want to understand the world you live in and be able to return your participation in correcting or influencing events, the ideas I'm going to discuss should both serve to enlighten and inspire you forward, to make you think, to help you, to set the anxiety, fear, and apathy away so you can free your mind. There has been a great program of disinformation as it pertains to this subject, in a concerted attempt to make any researcher throw their hands up in the air in frustration, specifically where the assassination is concerned. Just because that has existed and exists, that does not let you, the individual, off the hook from having to weigh complex considerations and do your own civic duty to not simply just be a cog of unconscious consumerism. Otherwise, you are helping to sow the seeds of even greater injustice for the future. Many of us, sadly, are so close-minded and so few take a really deep look into anything. We are a country now of overstimulated, apathetic, non-reflective echo chambers of our own repeated self-propaganda. I hope to inspire the deep diver in you forward from your dogmatic slumber. Going way back to one of the greatest generations of people ever to be born, people like Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Ben Franklin, and George Washington once walked this earth. These brave revolutionaries themselves, in the late 1700s, were under imminent threat of being hanged for treason by the British for their stand to act against the oligarchy facing them, to seek to break free and form a republic by and for the people, where certain rights were not up for sale or dictated by anyone. The lengths we have fallen over centuries from the lofty high ideal cannot be overstated. Even today, the wisdom the founders bestowed remains the answer to us recovering our way. It's important to remember they had a king as their opposer, a monarch with a vast army and tools at his disposal to break their will to fight. These very certain historical heroes came together in the late 1700s to break mankind free of the dominion by the privileged and well-born over the vast of common men. To bring onto the earth liberty for the individual, not for the system, not for a small group of people, not for the corporation, but for the individual. The United States was not designed by these great men to become a capitalistic, fascist, corporatist state. We have become that as a result of good people everywhere seeing all kinds of corruption, knowing that they're being lied to by their representatives, but failing to do anything about it. We are to blame for where we find our country and our world in the year 2022. But we also have the power to reject our own apathy, to unify the people, to reject the lies and stand up for truth. We must become masters of our own fate and realize that we are in control. The system currently in place depends upon your failure to act, upon your apathy, upon your willingness to stay asleep and remain divided from others. Politics is not the answer, it is the problem. There is a vast difference between what we are told of our shared history and what you will learn history actually is when you diligently look and research subjects of great consequence for yourself. The gap between the two is a very wide challenge to face. Many of us are simply so racked with stress and the need to make more and more money that we simply don't have the time, energy, or desire to generally look at today's events, let alone take on the subject of history, which is not how this country was formed to properly operate. Thomas Jefferson once said, "If you expect to be ignorant and free, you want what never was and what never will be." This concludes my intro video to my series of videos. In order to explore the subject of the assassination properly, follow the link in the description. Thank you.